Well, let's talk more about some of the developments that unfolded at the council chambers in Johannesburg. The executive mayor of the city, Mpho Phalatse, joins me now. So it was quite a chaotic sitting of council, and today I see that you and some of your colleagues went to lay criminal charges. This is particularly for the assaults that happened. Explain to us how many people were injured and what were the circumstances under which they were injured.
So, yes, Kathy, good evening to you, to your viewers, and thank you so much for having me on your show. We have a list of about 8 people who had injuries. There were various scuffles involving many councillors at any given point in time. I mean, even with myself, there was a time when I was supposed to give my nomination. Somebody decided to turn my microphone away from me. When I tried to take it back, they kept pulling it in the other direction. And before long, other councillors were around, and it was a big scuffle for the microphone. It was really ridiculous, you know. And it all started when the NC and the EFF realized they didn't have the numbers to vote in their chair of chairs and chairperson nominees, and they insisted on a secret ballot. This is for a council meeting which was planned over a month ago. A lot of the councillors from the various political parties are part of the multi-party whippery, which would sit with the whip in planning our council meeting. At no point did they raise any concerns about how this vote was going to happen. They knew it would be by a show of hands. There is precedence in our council where we've done that before. There's never been issues around it. They waited until the last minute, and we believe it's because they realized they didn't have the numbers and they were just trying to disrupt, whether to buy time or what their agenda was. We're not sure at this point, but it's quite clear that they wanted to collapse the meeting.
From a procedural perspective, I mean, were they wrong to ask for this secret ballot? Is it not allowed in the House rules?
According to the rules, it is the Speaker's prerogative to decide how a meeting is going to be held. However, the argument here is they've had all this time. In order for you to have a vote by secret ballot, you need to have certain things in place. You need to involve the IEC. You know, a vote by a show of hands requires nothing more than your normal council proceedings where you just raise your hands to vote on various items. However, a secret ballot vote requires external resources, which were not planned for. And the NC and the EFF were both part of the planning process, which took over a month. In fact, this council meeting was delayed. And what that means is that there's no oversight happening in the city currently. So we had wanted to have the sitting last year already, shortly after the MMCs were appointed. And councillors felt, or the various political parties felt, they want to do it after recess. We understood that they probably want to buy time to negotiate partnerships with other political parties, and that wish was granted. But what it means in the interim is that there is no oversight. We don't have Section 79 committees. We don't have oversight chairperson.
I hear what you're saying in terms of the lateness or how late in the day this issue was raised, but ultimately, given how the government in Johannesburg has been formed, it shouldn't be unexpected that there will be some unexpected maneuvers from various parties. Do you think that it was handled in the best way possible?
Yes, I mean, on our end, definitely. The Speaker did everything in his powers according to the rules vested upon him. It is the Speaker's prerogative to decide how a meeting is going to be held. But the Speaker went further and went into a democratic process after one of the councillors, Councillor Mabaso, MMC for Housing from the IFP, raised his hand and said, well, let's vote on it then, you know, because they were insisting they want a secret ballot vote. And it was that vote that they then disrupted. They didn't allow the counting to happen. They started shoving the officials around, pushing them around, and that's when really a lot of the assaults started happening.
It really is embarrassing to see a sitting of council descend into the kind of scenes that, you know, we saw yesterday. For you as the mayor, what do you think in that moment could have been done to bring in some form of law and order? Because ultimately, the residents of Johannesburg are looking for stability. They're looking for, proper governance that will live up to the expectation that people have, not come to blows.
Well, if a political party is lawless, if there are criminals in a political party, there's nothing that anyone can do about it. We're doing everything by the book according to the rule of law. And that's why we went and laid charges today, because criminality needs to be exposed. Criminals do not belong in a council. They should not be public reps. If anybody feels it's okay to assault a fellow councillor, they don't belong in council. And so the only way is really to get rid of these kinds of elements. And I think voters must look and see who it is that they're voting in, and should consider voting differently next time to make sure that we don't end up with this sorts of thing in our councils.
So then who exactly have you laid charges against? And I mean, who are these criminals that you say are in council and shouldn't be there?
Well, unfortunately, because, the matter is now in the hands of the police, I really don't want to go into the names of who it is. What we've done since yesterday's sitting is we've looked at the footage. Fortunately, because it was a big meeting, it did attract media, and we've got lots of footage that shows all the various assaults that happened. We've spent the hours able to hand it over to all that information. It was ANC and EFF councillors mainly.
How many councillors exactly have you laid charges against? All right. It looks like that connection to the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg is just simply not holding up. I apologize for that. Of course, the MEC for Kokta in the province, Lebohang Maile, has since called for the speaker to give him a report within the next 7 days explaining exactly what happened in council and why it led to the disastrous state of affairs. As it stands, you heard there, no clear way forward in terms of when the next sitting will be. But also, of course, if this matter has now also become a criminal matter, it could have some other consequences. All right, I understand that we have the executive mayor, Mpho back on. She's the mayor of Johannesburg. Mpho, we lost you a bit there, and I was asking you about the number of people that you have laid charges against.
Yes, and as I was saying that, in the statements and as the footage gets reviewed, it will become clearer. There would have had to have been physical contact for somebody to lay a charge against someone. This was a mob, they were singing in a group, but you can't lay charges against the entire ANC or against the entire EFF. You have to be able to single out who did what. If a fist or a punch was thrown, or there was a lot of elbowing even, you've got to be able to say, here, I can see this councillor doing this to this councillor. And that process is underway as the footage is being reviewed. As it stands, we've opened the cases. Our councillors have physical injuries. The J88s have been completed by the medical legal practitioner so that we can have that on record where there are injuries. And we will know with time exactly how many councillors were involved in laying hands on the councillors that were injured.
As it stands, the Kokta MEC has already raised concerns about stability and governance within the city of Johannesburg, and in fact has asked the speaker to write a report explaining exactly what has happened within the next 7 days.
Well, the Kokta MEC is an ANC MEC. This is an internal matter. He should be sorting it out within the ranks of the ANC. No one else but the ANC and the EFF is responsible for what happened yesterday. So people need to take responsibility. I mean, I don't understand that kind of thinking. We went into council. We were peaceful. We maintained the decorum of council. We did everything by the book. We didn't break any laws. People decided to be lawless, and they must be dealt with.
It's a multi-party coalition that is keeping the government in Johannesburg together right now. And it's only the beginning of the year, and quite frankly, still very much the beginning of the term for this council. Let's talk about what things are going to look like going forward. I mean, when can we expect this the sitting to nominate the chair of chairs to be reconvened? And is this a sign of what things are going to look like over the next 5 years?
Well, we're hoping that people self-correct. I mean, for me, it was important to lay criminal charges. because people need to start to appreciate that there are consequences for actions. And, gone are the days when we sugarcoat criminality in this country. And I believe that such actions, I'm hoping rather, will start to dissuade some from further behaving in such criminal acts. I don't know what's going to happen. I cannot predict, but I can promise you that we are committed as the multi-party government towards our residents. We committed to protect our democracy, protect our city. We've got great plans for the city, and we remain committed to roll those plans out. As it stands, all the various MNCs are back in their portfolios, and they starting to roll out the plans that they've promised to our residents. As you know, we spoke to our residents just 2 days ago about our golden starts, what low-hanging fruits we've already identified. Those plans are underway, and we're not going to be distracted by this kind of criminal tactic.
When can we expect that particular sitting to be reconvened?
It's happening on Tuesday. The speaker did announce it yesterday when he adjourned the meeting.
All right, let's leave it there for tonight. The Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Mpho Phalatse.